There is a moment in every man's life, wisdom, where he realizes something doesn't feel right. He's giving attention, but not receiving the same energy back. He's being available, but somehow becoming less valued. He's doing more, but feeling like he matters less. And at first, he doesn't question it. He thinks maybe I just need to try a little harder. Maybe I should show more interest. Maybe if I prove myself, she'll see my value. But what he doesn't understand is this. Every time you overgive, every time you tolerate what you shouldn't, every time you ignore your own standards just to keep her around, you are slowly teaching her how to treat you. Not with words, but with your behavior, because people don't respect what you say. They respect what you allow. And this is where everything changes. Because the moment you stop allowing certain things, the moment you start holding your ground, the moment you choose your self-respect over her approval, her behavior shifts. Not immediately, not obviously, but internally, because now she feels something different. She feels resistance. She feels uncertainty. She feels that she no longer has full access to you. And that's where attraction begins to grow. Not when you give more, but when you become a man who cannot be easily accessed. And here's the truth most men avoid. Women don't chase men who are available all the time. They chase men who have boundaries. Not rude, not cold, not distant for no reason, but grounded, clear, unshakable. Because boundaries do something powerful. They create tension. They create mystery. They create a sense of value that cannot be negotiated. And when a woman feels that, she leans in. Not because you asked her to, but because she wants to understand you. So in this video, we're not talking about basic rules. We're going into the 7 boundaries that change the way she sees you completely. The kind of boundaries that make her feel, I can't treat him like everyone else. The kind of boundaries that make her question, why do I feel drawn to him more? Because when a man moves with clarity, with standards, with quiet strength, he doesn't chase attention anymore. He becomes the one people move toward. So if you've ever felt like she doesn't value me the way I value her, or I give too much and somehow lose respect, then this is where everything shifts. Not by doing more, but by finally deciding what you will never allow again. Before we start, a quick reminder, the real transformation doesn't happen on YouTube, it happens inside the community. If these videos have opened your eyes, what's inside will rebuild your mindset completely. It's not just a course, it's a brotherhood. A private space where men master attraction, emotional control, and the psychology of power. You don't join for a month, you join for life. Every future course, book, and lesson is yours forever. No subscriptions, no limits, just one decision that changes your direction. If you're serious about growth, discipline, and purpose, click the link below. Join the community, enroll once, grow forever. Let's dive in. Boundary number 1. You don't reward inconsistent behavior. There is a pattern that quietly destroys a man's value without him even realizing it. And it starts with how he responds to inconsistency. Not big disrespect, not obvious rejection, but those small moments where her energy goes up and down, where one day she is warm, engaged, and present, and the next day she becomes distant, slow, and almost unavailable. Most men notice it, feel it, and instead of stepping back, they do the opposite. They lean in more, they try harder, they give more attention, more effort, more energy, hoping to bring her back to the version they liked. And without realizing it, they create the worst dynamic possible. Because when you reward inconsistency with more attention, you teach her something powerful. You teach her that she does not need to be stable to keep your interest. You teach her that she can disappear, pull away, give less, and still receive more from you. And over time, this becomes the pattern she follows, not because she is trying to manipulate you, but because human behavior always follows what gets rewarded. Let's make it real. There was a man who used to talk to a woman every day. Some days she was fully present, replying fast, engaging deeply, asking questions, showing interest. Then suddenly, without explanation, she would slow down, reply late, give short answers, or disappear for hours, and every time that happened, he would react the same way. He would double text, try to be more interesting, send something funny, something engaging, something that would pull her back in. And sometimes it worked. She came back, laughed, engaged again. But what he didn't see was the bigger picture. He wasn't fixing the inconsistency. He was rewarding it. Now contrast that with a man who understands boundaries. When her energy drops, his energy doesn't increase. It stabilizes. He doesn't chase the moment. He doesn't try to pull her back immediately. He simply mirrors reality without overreacting. If she becomes less available, he becomes less invested in that moment. Not out of ego, not out of games, but out of self-respect. And that shift changes everything, because now she feels something different. She feels that access to you is not automatic. She feels that your attention is not guaranteed, and that creates awareness. She starts to notice her own behavior. She starts to feel the difference between when she is consistent and when she is not. And slowly, without being told, she adjusts, because consistency becomes the only way to maintain connection with you. So the lesson here is simple but powerful. You don't chase inconsistency. You don't fix it. You don't reward it. You stay grounded enough to let your behavior reflect your standards. Because the moment you stop rewarding unstable energy, you stop attracting it. And that is where respect begins to grow. Boundary number 2, you don't over-explain yourself to be understood. There is a silent habit that kills attraction faster than rejection ever could. And it is the need to explain yourself too much. Not because you are wrong, not because you made a mistake, but because you feel the need to be fully understood in every moment. Most men think communication means clarity at all costs. So when a woman questions something, challenges something, or simply reacts in a way that feels slightly off, they rush to explain themselves. They add more words, more context, more justification, thinking that if they just say it better, she will understand. But attraction does not grow through explanation, it grows through presence. Let's make it real. Imagine you say something simple, maybe a light observation or a casual opinion, and she responds with a slight edge, something like, "That doesn't really make sense," or "Why would you think that?" Now most men feel a subtle pressure in that moment. They feel like they need to clarify, to defend, to prove that what they said actually had meaning. So they go deeper, they explain their logic, they try to make it clear, and the more they talk, the more they lose the moment, because what she feels is not your intelligence. She feels your need to be validated. And the moment a man starts seeking validation through explanation, his energy shifts from grounded to reactive. Now contrast that with a man who holds this boundary. He does not rush to explain. He does not feel the need to justify every thought. He understands that not every moment requires agreement. So when she says, "That doesn't make sense," he might respond calmly, "It doesn't have to," or "That's just how I see it." And then he leaves it there. No tension, no pressure, no need to convince, and that does something powerful, because now she feels something she is not used to. She feels a man who is comfortable being misunderstood, a man who does not need approval to stand in his perspective, and that creates curiosity. Because when you do not chase understanding, people start leaning in to understand you. Now here is where most men misunderstand this boundary. They think it is about being cold or dismissive. It is not. It is about being secure in your position without needing to defend it constantly. You can still listen. You can still engage, but you do not overinvest in proving yourself, because the more you try to prove your value, the less it feels real, and the less you try to prove it, the more it becomes obvious. So the lesson here is clear. You do not over-explain to be understood. You express, you stand in it, and you allow space, because the man who is always explaining is trying to earn his place. But the man who is calm in his words already knows he has won. And that is what makes her lean in, not pull away. Boundary number 3, you don't make her the center of your time. There is a subtle shift that happens when a man starts to prioritize a woman too early or too heavily, and it does not feel like a mistake when he is doing it. It feels like interest, like effort, like care, like doing the right thing. He replies fast, he makes himself available, he adjusts his schedule. He finds time no matter what. And he thinks this is how connection grows. But what he does not see is that the more he organizes his time around her, the less valuable his time starts to feel, because value is not created by availability, it is created by limitation. When something is always accessible, always ready, always there, it loses weight, not because it is not good, but because it is predictable. And predictability, when it comes too early, kills curiosity. It removes the space where attraction grows. Let's make it real. There was a man who genuinely liked a woman, and from the beginning, he made her a priority. If she texted, he replied immediately. If she wanted to meet, he adjusted his plans. If she was free, he became free. At first, it felt smooth, natural, even exciting, but over time, something changed. She started taking longer to reply. She became less engaged. She canceled plans more easily. And he could not understand why, because in his mind, he was doing everything right. What he did not realize was that he removed all challenge from the interaction. He made himself too available. He made his time too easy to access. Now contrast that with a man who understands this boundary. He does not ignore her. He does not play games. But he has a life that does not revolve around her. He has priorities, responsibilities, goals, and moments that matter outside of the connection. So when she reaches out, he responds, but not at the cost of his focus. When she wants to meet, he is open, but not always instantly available, and that creates something powerful, because now she feels that your time has value. She feels that being part of your schedule is something she steps into, not something she automatically owns, and that changes her behavior. She becomes more intentional. She respects your time more. She starts to feel that being around you is something she has to align with, not something she can take for granted. Now, here is where most men misunderstand this. They think it is about being busy on purpose or pretending to have no time. It is not. It is about having a life that naturally limits your availability. Because when your life is full, your presence becomes meaningful. And meaningful presence creates emotional impact. So the lesson here is simple but deep. You do not make her the center of your time. You make your life the center, and she becomes a part of it. Because when a woman feels that she is your whole world, she relaxes. But when she feels that she is entering a world that is already strong without her, she leans in. And that is where attraction begins to grow naturally. Boundary number 4. You don't tolerate disrespect, even in small forms. Most men think disrespect is something obvious, something loud, something undeniable. But the truth is, disrespect rarely starts that way. It starts small, subtle, almost unnoticeable. A delayed reply with no acknowledgement, a canceled plan with no real effort to reschedule, a sarcastic comment that feels slightly off, a joke at your expense that doesn't sit right, but you laugh it off anyway. And in those moments, something important is happening, not in her behavior, but in your response. Because every time you ignore something that doesn't align with your standards, just to keep the peace, just to avoid tension, just to stay light, you are teaching her what you are willing to accept. And people don't test boundaries once, they test them gradually. They push and they adjust based on what you allow. Let's make it real. There was a man who liked a woman, and in the beginning, everything felt easy. But over time, she started showing small signs of inconsistency. She would cancel plans last minute, then come back like nothing happened. She would make small comments that felt slightly dismissive. Nothing major, nothing worth a big reaction, but enough to feel it. And every time it happened, he let it slide. He told himself, it's not a big deal, or I don't want to overreact, or I'll just keep things smooth. But what he didn't realize was that he wasn't keeping things smooth. He was lowering his standard. Now contrast that with a man who understands this boundary. He doesn't react emotionally. He doesn't create drama, but he addresses things with calm clarity. If a plan is can-led without respect, he doesn't immediately reschedule. He takes a step back and lets her feel the break in continuity. If a comment crosses a line, he doesn't laugh it off to fit in. He responds calmly, I don't move like that, and keeps his tone grounded. No anger, no explanation, just presence. And that changes everything, because now she feels something different. She feels that your standards are real, not spoken, not explained, but enforced through your behavior. And that creates respect, because respect is not built through kindness alone. It is built through boundaries that are consistently held. Now here is where most men go wrong. They either tolerate everything or they overreact to small things and create unnecessary conflict. But the man who understands this walks a different line. He notices everything but reacts selectively, calmly, precisely, and because of that, people adjust around him. So the lesson here is powerful. You don't tolerate disrespect even in small forms. Not because you want control, but because you respect yourself enough to not lower your standard for temporary comfort. And the moment a woman feels that she doesn't test you more, she starts to respect you differently. Boundary number 5. You don't seek her approval to feel confident. There is a quiet dependency that most men carry without realizing it, and it shows up in small, almost invisible ways. It is not obvious neediness, not begging for attention, not saying please like me, but something much more subtle. It is the habit of adjusting your behavior based on how she responds. When she is warm, you feel confident. When she is distant, your energy drops. When she validates you, you feel strong. When she pulls back, you start questioning yourself. And that is where the problem begins, because the moment your confidence depends on her reaction, you are no longer grounded in yourself. You are reacting, you are shifting, you are unconsciously asking her to define your state. And the more you do that, the more she feels it, not through your words, but through your energy. Let's make it real. There was a man who was naturally confident when things were going well. When she laughed, he felt strong. When she engaged, he felt in control. But the moment her energy changed even slightly, he started adjusting. He became more careful with his words. He tried to be more interesting. He tried to say the right things. And without noticing, he slowly stopped being himself. And that shift killed the attraction, because what she felt was not confidence. She felt dependency. Now contrast that with a man who holds this boundary. His confidence is not tied to her mood. It is not built on her reactions. It comes from his own life, his own direction, his own sense of self. So when she is warm, he enjoys it. When she is distant, he remains the same. Not cold, not detached, but stable. And that stability creates something powerful, because now she cannot predict him based on her own behavior. She cannot control the dynamic by changing her energy. She feels that he is grounded in something deeper than her presence. And that creates attraction, because confidence that is self-contained feels real. It feels strong. It feels rare. Now here is where most men misunderstand this. They think it means not caring. It does not. You can care, you can be interested, you can be engaged, but you are not emotionally dependent on the outcome. You are not waiting for her approval to feel good about yourself, because the moment a woman feels that your confidence comes from her, it loses. But the moment she feels that your confidence exists without her, she starts to value it. So the lesson here is deep. You don't seek her approval to feel confident. You bring your confidence into the interaction and you let her experience it. Because the man who needs approval is always trying to earn something. But the man who is already grounded in himself becomes something she cannot easily replace. And that is where the dynamic begins to shift. Boundary number 6, you don't chase when she pulls away. There is a moment in every connection where her energy shifts. It's not loud, it's not always obvious, but you feel it. She replies slower. She becomes less engaged. She stops initiating. The tone changes just enough for you to notice it. And in that moment, most men fail. Not because they don't see it, but because they react to it emotionally. They feel the distance and try to close it immediately. They text more. They ask more questions. They try to fix the change. And without realizing it, they start chasing. Now here's the truth most men don't understand. When she pulls away, it's not always a rejection. Sometimes it's space. Sometimes it's emotions. Sometimes it's her own life. But the moment you chase that space, you turn a neutral situation into pressure. And pressure kills attraction. Let's make it real. There was a man who had a strong connection with a woman. Everything was smooth, easy, natural. Then suddenly her energy dropped. Replies became shorter, less frequent, less emotional. And instead of staying grounded, he reacted. He sent more messages. He tried to bring back the old energy. He asked if everything was okay, and slowly the connection started to collapse. Not because she lost interest at first, but because he removed all space for her to feel anything. Now contrast that with a man who understands this boundary. When her energy shifts, he does not panic. He notices it, but he does not chase it. He keeps his life moving. He responds when there is something to respond to. But he does not over-invest in pulling her back. And that does something powerful, because now she feels the space. She feels the absence of pressure. She feels that he is not dependent on her energy to stay grounded. And inside that space, her emotions start to come back on their own, because attraction needs room to breathe. Now, here is where most men misunderstand this. They think not chasing means ignoring. It does not. You are not playing games. You are not disappearing out of ego. You are simply not reacting emotionally to temporary distance. You remain consistent in yourself, and that consistency becomes the anchor of the dynamic. So the lesson here is clear. You don't chase when she pulls away. You stay grounded. You stay focused. And you allow space to do what pressure never can. Because the moment you stop chasing, you give her the chance to feel your absence. And absence, when combined with attraction, creates pull. And that pull is what brings her back. Boundary number 7. You are always ready to walk away. There's a difference between a man who talks about standards and a man who is actually willing to lose something to protect them. And that difference is felt immediately, because everything we talked about before, consistency, not over-explaining, not chasing, holding your time, all of it depends on one thing: your willingness to walk away, not as a tactic, not as manipulation, but as a real option. Because if deep down you know you will stay no matter what, then your boundaries are not real. They are suggestions, and people feel that. Let's make it real. There was a man who had clear standards. He said he respected his time. He said he didn't tolerate inconsistency. He said he valued himself. But every time the situation tested him, he stayed. When she can lead, he accepted. When she pulled away, he chased. When she crossed the line, he explained instead of stepping back. And the result was predictable. Nothing changed because his words didn't matter. His actions showed that he was not ready to lose her. Now contrast that with a man who truly holds this boundary. He doesn't threaten to leave. He doesn't say it out loud, but his behavior makes it clear. If the dynamic stops respecting him, he steps back. If the connection becomes one-sided, he reduces his investment. If the situation no longer aligns with his standards, he walks away calmly. And that changes everything, because now she feels something real. She feels that your presence is not guaranteed. She feels that access to you is based on alignment, not on her mood, not on convenience, not on your need. And that creates value, because what can be lost is always respected more. Now here is where most men misunderstand this. They think walking away is about ego or pride. It is not. It is about self-respect. It is about knowing that your peace, your focus, your life direction matter more than holding on to a connection that does not match your level. And the moment a woman feels that she sees you differently, because now you are not just another man trying to make it work, you are a man who chooses what stays in his life, and that is rare. So the lesson here is the deepest one of all. You are always ready to walk away, not because you want to lose her, but because you are not willing to lose yourself. And that energy is what makes her chase, not your words, not your effort, but the quiet understanding that being with you is a choice she must continue to earn. Now step back for a second, look at everything we just talked about, not as techniques, not as strategies, but as a shift in who you are. Because this was never about controlling her. It was never about making her chase through tricks or manipulation. It was about becoming a man who cannot be treated casually. And that difference changes everything, because most men are trying to win attention. They try to be more interesting, more available, more understanding, more patient. And in doing that, they slowly become easier to replace. Not because they are not good enough, but because they are too accessible, too adjustable, too willing to bend just to keep someone around. But the man who lives by boundaries moves differently. He doesn't overreact. He doesn't over-explain. He doesn't chase energy that pulls away. He doesn't tolerate what doesn't align. And most importantly, he does not stay where he is not respected. And that creates something rare, because now his presence has weight, his attention has value, his time has meaning. And when a woman feels that she doesn't take it lightly, she becomes more aware, more intentional, more invested, because now she understands something without you saying a word. This is not a man I can treat like everyone else. And that realization is what creates the shift, not forcing her to chase, but becoming the kind of man she doesn't want to lose. So the next time you feel the urge to chase, to explain, to adjust, to tolerate something, just to keep the connection alive, pause and ask yourself one question. Am I acting from need or from self-respect? Because that answer defines everything that happens next. And the moment you consistently choose self-respect, you don't need to make her chase anymore. She starts doing it on her own, not because you asked, but because something in you feels different, stronger, more grounded, more rare. And rare things are never chased, they are kept.